Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Trump Tyranny Tracker. It's so good to be with you again. We're sorry you missed yesterday. Olga had an outage, an internet outage all across where she lives, but also in her home. So we're glad you got your internet back. It must be quite difficult not having it.
I am so upset because it's not like I was already behind on everything. And then yesterday, literally the whole day, there was no internet and whatnot. Apparently it wasn't just, Staten Island. It was New York City. People were complaining, about an outage. So here
It's
we
so
are.
crazy that that's happening in this day and age. We have entire regions like that still vulnerable to internet outages. I wanted to get your thoughts because I know you posted about this yesterday about the shooting in Minneapolis and the subsequent revelation that there was, Cyrillic text in the shooter's manifesto or diaries. This is quite a big deal, in my opinion. I mean, as you stressed in your post, there's a lot of Russian operations that happen online still, and that this person could have been subject to some sort of Russian operation.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if he was directly recruited by the Russians, but the problem is, and what the West has failed to do, and this has been an increasing problem, over the past decade, is that Russia is literally, they are using the same tactics like ISIS, Al Qaeda, and other terrorist organizations to indoctrinate and recruit people. In some cases, they just indoctrinate them in order to, push them to carry out violence. Other cases, they were recruiting, as I was documenting, since the full-scale invasion, that Wagner was going online and recruiting Americans and Europeans to basically from online, like there was
Yeah,
one on Twitter, that they
Telegram.
were recruiting, Telegram, but even Twitter, they were Discord and other things. They were recruiting people to go, fight Russia's genocidal war, invasion in Ukraine. This is a big problem. And, I've suggested numerous times that since people cannot get a handle, agencies cannot get a handle on this, that maybe they should, dust off their terrorist organization playbooks on how they went after ISIS and others in order to try to stop their operations to infiltrate. And
It's a very good point.
in this case, like, you have a kid from Minneapolis and, clearly he had mental health problems. But the fact that, he's writing manifestos or whatever, ramblings in Cyrillic, the fact that he's writing on his magazine things in Russian, and I hate that the media, print media, cable TV hasn't even mentioned the Russian part,
Yeah.
but print media is saying Cyrillic. This is Russian words. Like, we don't need to sugarcoat anything. These aren't Ukrainian words. These are Russian words. And the fact that he's writing this on, his magazines, where did he get this? Why
Yeah,
is he writing ramblings in Russian?
exactly.
Why is he mixing English with Russian when he doesn't have, from what I've seen,
No
any.
Russian background.
Exactly. So, I mean, this is the problem. Somewhere, they are going on Discord or, Telegram,
It reminds me
every platform.
of Chan 4 and Chan 8 of the old days when Steve Bannon's operations were there to recruit alt-rightists. It sounds like a very similar kind of strategy. Maybe it's not happening in the bigger platforms, but it certainly could be happening in the various corners of the internet.
And Americans better watch out because, like I said, I've been tracking this for a long time because I work on Russia's information warfare. And the trend is to move people to violence. Before it was just to polarize countries and separate people. But over the past decade, they've started trending to move people towards violence. And across Europe, they're actually recruiting people to carry out sabotage operations, to blow up ammunition plants, to blow up train stations, set fires, all the arson attacks we see in Poland and France and Germany and, across Europe. So this is a very serious problem. And in this particular case, something that Russia will continue doing. They will continue escalating. We saw them do this specifically with COVID, where it wasn't them just pushing, as uh, fake Americans, quote unquote, this is my freedom, my body, my freedom, whatever. but they were actually moving, shifting people to go outside, start burning masks, start, having these violent town halls and protest. And this is a problem. I mean, this is really a problem. And, one of the things people should try is using the tactics used against terrorist organizations because the tactics are identical to
Yeah.
what Russia's doing.
I've also been monitoring this for a few years now. This notion of of these trans terrorists is sort of trying to create the sort of maybe it's an impression, but certainly they're trying to get ahead of all these shootings that happen. And the MAGA's always jumping in with, well, this person's trans, this person's trans, this person. And so it seems to me that they're trying to militarize the trans community or elements of the trans community as a foe for them, really. Because you're seeing it only emerge from MAGA's side. You're not really seeing that kind of tension emerging from the trans community. It seems to be painted on them by MAGA influencers and activists online.
Yeah, and look, I mean, MAGA does this with everything. I mean, the minute there is a shooting, they look to see, they have their set of talking points immediately. So if it's someone who, I remember the terrorist attack we had, what was it, the beginning of January, they really like jumped onto the bandwagon that this is an illegal immigrant. Meanwhile, the guy was born in the United States,
Exactly.
So they have either it's an immigrant talking point or it's, the liberals who are doing this trans community. In this case, interestingly enough, I started digging yesterday because I was looking for these Russia roots to see what in the world is happening. This person apparently from his ramblings was also detrans. He was, basically writing that he made a mistake by becoming trans and whatnot. Clearly, the person had, mental health issues. This is something that people around him should have been monitoring, should have gotten him help for, and definitely should not have allowed him to go and get, 3 weapons legally.
Yeah. I was
But at
stunned
the
by
same
the,
time, you
yeah.
have to look at these other outside factors.
I agree with you. I think this is one of those things, especially the Russian and words and context that he was writing inside his diaries. They're a real tell, and I hope investigators in the media start investigating what that was all about, how he got involved with anyone who speaks Russian, and on what platforms, and if they
Who
in fact
wrote
existed.
these?
Yeah, who wrote
Did
that?
he learn?
Yeah, it's not an easy language to learn. Um,
Absolutely not. I could tell you, I mean, for me, it's second, well, first, first hand, but it's not an easy language to learn. And the fact that he had this, it's not even that it was AI generated or Google Translate, which is available to a lot of people, even though it drives me nuts because, a lot of people who use Google Translate miss the nuances in the Russian language. So they read it as one thing, whereas if you're a native Russian speaker, you'll see something else. But this was handwritten. Why? Where did he learn to handwrite? Ramblings in Russian.
Especially what he was rambling about was about school shootings and about violent ideation. It's very unusual for anyone to be learning anything like that. It does seem like there's a lot of investigation that still needs to be done on that. But let's get into the Trump tyranny tracker today. It's day 220 of the Trump administration, and this is what's happening in terms of authoritarian creep in the United States. ExxonMobil has been holding secret talks with Rosneft about rejoining Russia's Sakhalin oil and gas project 3 years after exiting over Russia's genocidal invasion of Ukraine. Senior Exxon executive Neil Chapman met with sanctioned Rosneft CEO Igor Sechin while Trump and Putin signaled openness during their Alaska summit. This represents a major crack in what was a very formidable Western sanctions regime. Now it seems that Putin has got another bit of relief from the United States.
Well, not relief yet. And again, I am putting this call out and I'm going to see over the next few days if I could do a formal campaign. But the fact is, you have Exxon here. I just finished rambling about it this morning with Julie on our Pax Americana show. You have Exxon, an American company who basically is having secret talks with Rosneft to what? Fund their genocide? I mean, this is what's happening. An American company is saying, you know what? We want to give you more money so you could continue your genocidal invasion. You can continue stealing tens of thousands of children. And frankly, I mean, I personally already wrote to the customer, whatever, public relations. And I really am at a point that I want to start a campaign. And I hope Americans will join me in sending pictures of war crimes, people buried under rubble, as right now Ukrainians are still searching for people who from last night's attack. Faces of children who have been kidnapped. Like this should go to the public relations,
We
of
should do a meme
Exxon.
campaign with all those images and Exxon's mobile
Yeah, and
logo all
target
over it.
them because you know what? If
Because,
shareholders are comfortable to fund a genocide, I
yeah,
mean, publicly, the
yeah.
Americans need to know about it,
It's
and
also,
their customers need to
if
know.
if this is something that Putin raised with Trump in Alaska, it means that Trump is obviously agreeing to something behind the scenes that hasn't been warranted. He hasn't earned those rewards yet because he never hasn't come anywhere near a ceasefire or any sort of agreement. He won't go there. Yet Trump is busy, handing over permission for Exxon to talk to Rosneft in all likelihood in that meeting. So it's a very, it's a real break in our resolve in terms of our support for Ukraine.
Yeah, and not only that, the first of all, Sechin is mafia and frickin' KGB and like a thug. He's a war criminal thug. Um, and so is the company Rosneft that, funds these operations. The fact is that according to Wall Street Journal, these talks happened months ago,
Oh,
that
wow.
the head of the CEO of Exxon met with Sechin in Doha. So what were they doing?
Yeah.
Sechin is sanctioned. He should not, first of all, I don't even know why he's in Doha. And second of all, thank goodness, at least for print reporting, because, they exposed the secret meeting. It wasn't meant to be public, clearly. And then the fact that whatever was discussed in Doha, guarantee you, Witkoff running around Moscow and St. Petersburg being wined and dined is, in on these, or arranging these talks. And then it falls into the summit. I mean, this is absolutely outrageous. I mean, this is beyond outrageous.
Mhm. Yeah, that's an interesting campaign idea you had there. Maybe people want to pick it up. It's a really worthwhile effort for people to start targeting Exxon and
Yeah, and
demanding
protest
answers.
and protest in front of Exxon gas stations. If I see an Exxon gas station, I'm going to spit on it. I mean, this just for having these talks, not even that they entered back into Russia, but just even entertaining, thinking to go and help Russia fund this genocidal machine, which is exactly what their war, invasion funds are coming from.
Our next story on the tracker is all about tariffs. Trump has vowed tariffs and export restrictions against countries with digital taxes or regulations targeting U.S. tech giants. A threat widely seen as aimed at the European Union. He's blasting Europe's sweeping digital laws against tech and online platforms while claiming China escapes similar scrutiny. This represents a direct attack on allied nations protecting their digital sovereignty. But really, these laws are designed to protect against disinformation.
Actually, that's exactly what it was developed for, to protect against Russia's disinformation, China's, but China pretty much is more, they're not as sophisticated. Russia is the one that takes the lead in this, but this is exactly what this was, developed for. And now you have them threatening tariffs against Europe for protecting, their countries from Russia's disinformation and information warfare operations. And also you have the State Department threatening to sanction Europeans. I mean, what are we doing? Like, we're going after our allies. I don't see Trump, or Marco Rubio sanctioning Russia.
No, we don't
But
see that, but they seem to be
let's
helping
sanction
Russia.
our,
They're
yeah,
helping
let's
Russia by
sanction our.
attacking these laws. I mean, that's really what this ends up doing. It allows Russian disinformation to keep targeting the elections in Western Europe. I mean, that's really at the crux of this. And it's
All of
dressed up.
Europe.
Yeah. And it's dressed up as let's protect the tech companies. But the tech companies don't need this. They're well aware of what's going on their platforms and that they're being misused by disinformation operatives. Um, Denmark has summoned the U.S. envoy in Copenhagen after reports that three Americans tied to Trump operations were running covert influence operations in Greenland. The alleged effort involved recruiting locals into a secessionist movement and cultivating politicians to weaken ties with Denmark and tilt the island towards Washington. This is a dramatic thing. This is a NATO country that they are running American spy operations in order to try and get this region to secede.
And even more so than spy operations, actual covert operations, how you call it, weaken Greenland. I mean, I could have written a line or 50 of them with Russia doing this, because this is usually their active measures to go into countries and to, run these influence operations and to basically create these fake movements that are under the control of Moscow. Here we have the United States who is doing this. I can tell you, I've spoken to European officials. I've never seen them this outraged before. Um, there's a lot that Europeans tolerate. Just in general, they have a very high threshold for patience. This has really set them off, because here you have the United States, who's supposed to be one of Europe's closest allies since post-World War II, well, since World War II. And they are running information and influence operations against a NATO territory.
Yeah.
I mean, this is absolutely surreal that,
There's
this is happening.
Article 4 of NATO specifically mentions this. You can't really do this to NATO countries. So this is the United States contravening Article 4. And also, what you're pointing out there is that it is very much like a Russian influence operation. It looks like America has sort of taken over those tactics and is now running running its operations based on what Russia does. And, we noticed the same kind of secessionist attempts are happening in Alberta, in Canada, small but still growing. Secessionist movements happening in a province in Canada that seems to be also supported by the Canadian, the U.S. ambassador to Canada. So there's it looks suspiciously like this might not even be a one time effort. It looks like it could be in other countries as well.
Well, yeah, and I mean, Russia is known. I mean, this is their operation. The Cali exit, to have, how you call it, California secede. The guy is in Russia. He fled
I
to
remember that, yeah.
Russia. He's living in Russia. Actually, with a few years ago, said, I think in 23 or maybe the beginning of last year, said that he was gonna, launch Cali exit part two. The Texas effort was done by Russia. Catalonia done by Russia. I mean, this is Russia's playbook. I mean,
Absolutely. Absolutely, the playbook.
it is Russia's playbook for decades. And here you have, America doing this. Let me tell you, at the end of the day, Americans are going to pay such a big price, because there's absolutely no country, ally or adversary, who will ever trust America. Adversaries will continue, trying to put the nail in the coffin and basically finish America off. Our allies are not going to trust us after this, not for decades. I mean, it's
I
really,
agree
really
with you.
going. So,
But I wonder why we're not seeing a bigger effort in terms of sanctioning the United States now. I mean, clearly the peace talks are a farce. There's no real effort to end that war, maybe even withdraw American support from Ukraine. Like, is there any voice out there that's speaking towards, well, it's time to sanction the United States?
no, they're not going to do it. They will hold off at least, through 2028, because in their head they think we're going to have an election that's fair and
Or a
free.
war?
Yeah, so they are definitely not going to do anything right now, but privately they are, understand. They got the hint that, America is no longer what it stands for. Regardless if a Democrat becomes president in 2029, they, like I keep saying, cannot have this yo-yo foreign policy where one
Yeah.
minute America's our friend, the next minute our enemy, one minute full support for NATO, next minute destroy NATO. They cannot have this, and they cannot have these covert operations being carried out against their countries. They cannot have intel sharing being cut from them in key cases. And, we've already discussed the Five Eyes is going to be Four Eyes. And the only one who's going to get hurt is America, because Americans are going to be blindsided at home. They're going to be blindsided overseas. And if there's, and we definitely have no shortage of adversaries, and Trump seems to be, creating more by the week. So we're the ones who are going to pay the price for this.
Absolutely. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard has revoked security clearances of 37 officials tied to the Russian probe and Trump's first impeachment, inadvertently exposing a covert CIA officer. She delivered this list without consulting the CIA, alarming officials who warned the disclosure jeopardized CIA cover procedures and foreign relations. Gabbard says she acted on Trump's orders to purge those who had politicized intelligence. Tell us more about this. This is revelationary.
Yeah, so one, she has dismantled the election integrity or foreign election monitoring unit in this latest purge. Two, she purged, I believe it's 40% of, analysts. Three, she purged the top CIA analyst, not CIA, no, it's CIA, sorry. Analyst who is a Russia expert. They unmasked this officer, and a lot of these actions happened. One, she's saying at the direction of Trump, and two, right after the Alaska summit. And just for people to understand, the CIA has been, Russia's biggest enemy since, and MI6 since, decades. I mean, decades upon decades. And the fact that here you have someone who is dismantling all our intelligence services, going after CIA officers, unmasking CIA officers. This is extremely problematic. And again, why I say, our allies are not going to trust us with intelligence. Because again, if we get a Democrat next time in, what is to stop another Trump-like figure coming in and then taking the intelligence, that our allies shared and weaponizing it for their own political agenda. So this is, again, very problematic. I don't know why we have a Russian asset as the head of DIA. I don't know why Republicans, allowed her to get there, knowing everything they do on her. And now why
Well, the
they're
answer
staying
is
silent.
they're all
Yeah,
pretty
but the
compromised
Republic
themselves. I mean, that's really the answer.
Well, they are and they're not. I think they're just, some of them are. Some Republicans clearly are. And then you have a majority of them, who just want to hang on to power.
Mm.
And if, betraying America is the way to hang on to power and not to maintain the MAGA base, then this is it.
Or they're just shrugging their shoulders and saying, "Well, we're going to try this. We're going to try the MAGA way and see what happens," and not really seeing the consequences, the global consequences that we're seeing and that you're reporting on about, CIA agents being exposed and a breakdown in trust between our key allies. And America really going it alone with Russia. Is so stark. It's such a big deal, but many people may not even see that. They just may see what they're hearing and viewing from Donald Trump every day. This next story is a really good one. A grand jury has refused to indict Sean C. Dunn, a former DOJ paralegal, on felony assault charges after he threw a sandwich at a federal agent deployed in Washington. This case, hyped by the regime, joins a string of failed prosecutions against protesters arrested by militarized federal forces. The collapse of this prosecution reveals the limits of criminalizing dissent, but it's also very unusual. This grand juries do not tend to throw out prosecutions. I think, there's maybe a dozen or so that have happened in the last year. So this is a big deal.
Yeah, it's a big deal, and it just shows how ludicrous. You have Pam Bondi using the guy. I mean, he threw a Subway sandwich.
Yeah.
at, the National Guard and federal agents. It's a Subway sandwich.
Yeah.
Like, if
They're tough
my
enough.
defense,
They can
I
handle
would
it.
be like, oh, well, I wanted to feed them.
Yeah.
The fascists need to eat and also. But he threw a Subway sandwich, and you had, Janine, or what's her name, Pirro, coming out as if he, like, literally, threw a grenade, and we are going to prosecute to the fullest extent of the law. You had Pam Bondi come out. I mean, they were all clapping around like seals, using this as their test case. And this is what happens when, you overreach.
Mm.
This is why they didn't indict. I mean, it's like if I, pass through a stop sign and then prosecutors charged me federally with, like, I don't know, some federal crime that is absolutely uncalled, doesn't match me running a stop sign. This is exactly what happened, and I wanted to end on there's a few.
Silver lining.
Yeah, a few things that have a silver lining. This is one of them because, at least the grand jury understood that this is the most absurd thing. I mean, I could just imagine government prosecutors walking in, and trying to make this big felony case of a guy who threw a Subway sandwich.
Yeah, no, they must have all laughed. And it's great that the people are standing up and taking the power that they do have in grand juries to push back against this overreach. That is the Trump Tyranny Tracker today for August the 28th. I'll be back in about 30 minutes from now, and we'll talk to Deep Blood Dell, the top 5 stories of the day. We'll also have a special look into this Greenland operation and what America's been doing in Greenland and how Denmark is reacting. So that's coming up in 30 minutes on Narativ.
And I'll be back in 1 minute with Julie on our active measures series.
Oh my gosh, you are a busy lady.
1 minute.
Okay, so in exactly 60 seconds from now, check out Olga Lautman. You can also check out Unmasking Russia, where you can find out all about her new series about the 2016 election and the Trump Tyranny Tracker. Of course, subscribe and tell your friends about it. Make sure everyone subscribes to Olga's great work. That's the show today. Thanks, everyone, for being here.
Bye,
and
everyone.
Thank you, Olga. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.